This is titled Moses Caught a Body, coming out of Exodus chapter 2, verses 11 through 15. And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, two men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said unto him that did the wrong, Wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? And he said, Who made thee a prince and judge over us? Intendest thou to kill me as thou killest the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, Surely this thing is known. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dealt in the land of the Midian, and he sat down by a well. At this time, Moses did not have a relationship with God. When he killed the Egyptian, it wasn't through God's word, because later on, once Moses had a relationship with God, God talks directly to Moses. But at this time, Moses is acting off of just what is in his heart and mind. Now, this act, while it is brutal in nature, shows, one, how much heart, strength, and courage Moses had before having a direct relationship with God. Two, it shows how much love Moses had for his brethren. Because while, even though he was living a good life, living with Pharaoh's daughter, where he didn't have to labor and slave like the other Hebrews, he chose instead to take the life of the Egyptian and hide the body in the sand after he saw the Egyptian hitting his brethren. Now, most people in that situation would have just minded their business and kept on living the so-called good life. Because look at how much was at stake. Look at what was to be lost. Moses didn't know what would be the outcome. In fact, he thought he would get away with it, because on the next day, Moses went out like nothing happened the day before. Now, that's hard. You kill a man whose people have rule over you and your people, and on the next day act like it's nothing, until two of your own brethren call you out on it. Then when it gets too hot for Moses, he leaves and starts a whole new life somewhere else. Now those actions Moses displayed, I can relate to so many street dudes. I'm not about to compare Moses to a street dude, but his actions are parallel to that of a hustler. Many hustlers hustled because they saw their mother or family struggle and would do anything to make life for them easier or better, even if it was just for the moment. And when it got too hot, most, or should I say the smart hustlers, left the game and started a whole new life. Now we know the story after. God calls Moses to lead God's people out of Egypt. Why would God choose a killer, a murderer? Why? Because he wanted someone with heart to stand in front of Pharaoh. See, Moses already had enough heart to kill an Egyptian. But now imagine how much heart Moses had to have to stand in front of Pharaoh and to tell him, let God's people go. Knowing that you are on a mission for and from God should bring much increase to your level of heart and faith. It took heart each and every time to stand before Pharaoh and tell him to let God's people go. It took heart to march out of Egypt. The heart Moses showed before having a relationship with God is the reason why God chose Moses. A weak person cannot lead because they will fold to the pressure of any opposition. Case in point, Moses went up to the mountain to talk to God and get the 10 Commandments. After the people saw Moses was up there for too long, they pressed Aaron, acting leader. Aaron folded to the pressure of the people and made a molten calf for the people to worship and praise. Aaron did not have enough heart to stand up to the people. But Moses, when he came down from the mountain, burnt the calf, grounded it into the powder, and strewed it upon the water, and made the children of Israel drink it. To me, that's heart and gangster. To chastise a whole multitude of people and make them drink their sin. Now you see why God chose Moses the killer. The heart you had, the drive you had, the motivation you had before knowing God or having a relationship with God is why he chose you today. Who were you before you got saved? What type of life did you live before you became a Christian? Were you a single mother that found a way to keep the kids fed, clothed, and bills paid at all costs? Were you a hustler that had to make ends meet for your family to survive? Or were you the life of the party, a crowd motivator? But now that you are saved, you act humble all day instead of making it happen. You cry and pray for God to do it, and it's not like God won't do it for you. But what God's want is for you to be the same person you were before you got saved. Faith without works is dead. Just do it for the good of God. Use the strengths of your past life in your new life with Christ. You wasn't afraid to hustle before. Don't be afraid to get out there and hustle for souls. Motivate people for Christ. The person you were before Christ is why God chose you. Now that you have a relationship with Christ, you are supposed to increase in strength and knowledge. In Romans chapter 8, verses 28, it reads, And we know that all things work together for the good of them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. So that means everything that you went through at this point in time in your life all geared towards the better/good of you. So in your walk with God, use the strength of your past, those life lessons you learned to be the head and not the tail, to be the conqueror. And for those of you not saved and not living a life pleasing to God, don't for once think that God doesn't want you or care for you. The life you live now will be the strength you can use when you come to Christ and get on the right path. Have a good day. Stay blessed, everyone.